This past week, there was a ceasefire announced in Munich. John Kerry also addressed the Munich Security Conference this past weekend, as did the Iraqi leader and Russia's foreign secretary. Let's listen. I believe this is from the 12th. John Kerry outlining the ceasefire plan in Syria that were agreed to in Munich.
We have agreed to implement a nationwide cessation of hostilities to begin in a target of 1 week's time. That's ambitious, but everybody is determined to move as rapidly as possible to try to achieve this. This will apply to any and all parties in Syria, with the exception of the terrorist organizations Daesh and al-Nusra, and any other terrorist organization designated by the Security Council. We have agreed to accelerate and expand the delivery of humanitarian aid beginning immediately. Sustained delivery will begin this week. First, to the areas where it is most urgently needed: Deir ez-Zor, Fua, Kafreya, the besieged areas of rural Damascus, Madaya, Muthimiyah, Kafir Batna, and then to all the people in need throughout the country, particularly in the besieged or hard-to-reach areas. I will say that it was unanimous. Everybody today agreed on the urgency of humanitarian access. And what we have here are words on paper. What we need to see in the next few days are actions on the ground in the field.
So this is interesting. Functionally, what this means is a couple of things. Russia has been given relatively free rein to operate in Syria despite condemning of Russian action by Western powers. And obviously Russia is taking some military action against al-Nusra and ISIS, but fundamentally they are the air power that is shoring up the Assad regime. There's a couple different variables to this. First, on a humanitarian level, it's important to remember that the body count from the Assad government still dwarfs ISIS. And the humanitarian abuses continue in a significant way. And that's a problem. And paradoxically, this whole process reveals really the total incoherence of Western strategy in Syria. I've talked about Thabo Mbeki, the former president of South Africa, who explained the distinction between justice and peace with regards to conflict zones like Syria. And the argument is that too often there is an imposed humanitarian objective that jumps over a process of stopping hostilities. So we could have recognized back when this broke out a couple of things. The Assad government was committing obscene brutalities, and that as a result, what had began in 2011 as a democratic uprising in Syria, quite analogous to other civil society and human rights movements across the Middle East region in that time, that was called the quote-unquote Arab Spring, or Arab uprisings, that his government had real support. It was not just a small cadre of people and insiders who were part of patronage networks. Because he represented the Alawite minority and because there was concern of the Shia and Alawites that there could be a fundamentalist Sunni takeover from a group like ISIS, that was anticipated. So there was real support for that regime staying in power and legitimate concerns from the Alawites and the Shia. Russia and Iran were not going to allow essentially what they would deem to be a Saudi or Gulf client state in Syria. Iran uses Syria as a transport to get supplies to Hezbollah in Lebanon, and it is key for its regional strategy. So they backed Assad and continue to back Assad in very sophisticated ways through this brutal and horrific civil war. And the lesson is that this process needed to start in the beginning. We needed to recognize that a realist response was necessary. And paradoxically, that might have actually facilitated the departure of Assad. But we have gotten to a completely incoherent place where what Assad predicted a couple years ago, which is that fundamentalists are going to take over the uprising, which he actually helped put into place by releasing fanatics from Syrian prisons, by in some ways picking his enemy, delegitimizing, destabilizing, and targeting the more moderate forces. He got the enemy he wanted, and now he will continue with impunity.